After 30 years of putting away criminals as the county sheriff, Sam Cooper thought his retirement would be peaceful. He bought a perfect house in a quiet neighborhood, planted some colorful flowers, and put up a basketball hoop for the local kids. Little did he know that his simple decorating choices would bring fake HOA police to his door, threatening to arrest him. They picked the wrong retiree to intimidate. Sam might have hung up his badge, but his sheriff instincts never retired. Now, he's uncovering a neighborhood-wide scam that's been terrorizing his neighbors for years. The only problem? The mastermind behind it all might be closer than anyone suspects. Sam Cooper stood in the driveway of his new home, hands on his hips, and took a deep breath of fresh morning air. After 30 years as the sheriff of Riverdale County, retirement felt strange. Good strange, but still strange. "What do you think, Rusty?" Sam asked his golden retriever, who was sniffing around the yard with great interest. Rusty looked up, tail wagging like crazy, and gave a happy bark that seemed to say, "I love it." The house on Maple Street wasn't fancy, but it was perfect. It had a wide front porch with enough room for a swing, a big kitchen where Sam could try all those recipes he'd been saving, and most importantly, a yard where Rusty could run around. After living in a small apartment close to the sheriff's office for so many years, this felt like a palace. "Well, boy, we'd better start unpacking," Sam said, giving Rusty a pat on the head. Just as Sam was about to head inside, a woman with silver hair walked over from the house next door. She carried a plate covered with a checkered cloth. "Hello there, neighbor," she called, waving her free hand. "I'm Betty Williams. Welcome to Sunny Pines." Sam smiled and walked over to meet her. "Sam Cooper. Nice to meet you, Betty." Rusty trotted alongside him, eager to make a new friend. "I brought you some welcome cookies," Betty said, handing over the plate. "Moving is hungry work." "That's mighty kind of you," Sam said, peeking under the cloth to see chocolate chip cookies. His favorite. "I appreciate it." "Is this your first day here?" Betty asked, bending down to let Rusty sniff her hand. The dog immediately decided she was trustworthy and pushed his head under her palm for pets. "Yep. Just retired last month and decided I needed a change of scenery." This community seemed perfect. Betty smiled as she scratched behind Rusty's ears. "It's a wonderful place to live. Quiet, safe, and the people are friendly. Most of them, anyway," she added with a small laugh. "Most of them?" Sam raised an eyebrow. "Oh, don't mind me," Betty waved her hand. "Every neighborhood has its characters. You'll fit right in. Were you working before retiring?" "I was the sheriff over in Riverdale County," Sam said. Betty's eyes widened. "A sheriff? Well, that's wonderful. We've never had a real law officer living here before. The kids on the block will think that's very exciting." Throughout the day, more neighbors stopped by to introduce themselves. Jim and Laura Peterson from across the street brought a homemade lasagna. Old Mr. Jenkins from 2 doors down offered to help Sam set up his lawnmower. Even the mailman, Frank, took a moment to welcome Sam to the route. By evening, Sam was tired but happy. He sat on his new porch with a cup of coffee, watching as kids rode bikes and played in the golden sunset light. Rusty lay at his feet, equally content. "We did good picking this place, didn't we, boy?" Sam said. The next morning, Sam woke up early, from habit. As sheriff, he'd often started his days before sunrise. Even though he didn't need to anymore, his body wouldn't let him sleep in. "Come on, Rusty. Let's explore our new kingdom," he said, clipping on the dog's leash. They walked around the neighborhood as the sun came up. Maple Street connected to Oak Lane, which led to Pine Road, forming a loop around a small park in the EU center. The houses were all different but neat, with trim lawns and tidy gardens. Everything looked peaceful. When they got back home, Sam decided it was time to make the place truly his. He went to the garage and pulled out a basketball hoop he'd bought years ago but never had space to set up. It took a couple of hours, but by lunchtime, he had it firmly attached above the garage door. "There we go," he said, stepping back to admire his work. "Now, we just need a ball." After lunch, Sam turned his attention to the front yard. The previous owners had left it plain, just grass and a few boring bushes. Sam had stopped at a garden center on his way into town and bought colorful flowers, bright red geraniums, purple petunias, sunny yellow marigolds, and some orange zinnias. He spent the afternoon digging in the dirt, planting flowers along the edge of the yard and around the mailbox. He even put up a bird feeder in the oak tree. Rusty supervised from the shade, occasionally bringing Sam a stick as if to suggest it would look nice in the garden too. "Not exactly landscaping material, buddy," Sam laughed, tossing the stick for Rusty to chase. As the sun began to set, Sam stood back to admire his work. The basketball hoop was ready for a game. The flowers added cheerful splashes of color, and the bird feeder was already attracting curious finches and cardinals. "Sheriff Cooper?" a small voice called. Sam turned to see a boy about 10 years old standing on the sidewalk holding a basketball. The kid had freckles and a hopeful expression. "Just Sam now," he corrected with a smile. "What can I do for you, young man?" "I'm Tommy from down the street. Betty told my mom you were a sheriff and that you put up a basketball hoop." The boy shifted from foot to foot. "I was wondering if maybe sometime I could shoot some hoops. My dad says we can't put one up at our house." Sam felt a warm glow in his chest. This was exactly why he'd moved here, to be part of a community again. "Tell you what, Tommy, I need to test this hoop out anyway. How about right now?" Tommy's face lit up like Christmas morning. "Really? Awesome!" For the next hour, Sam and Tommy took turns shooting baskets, while Rusty tried to figure out why they kept throwing the ball but never let him catch it. By the time Tommy had to go home for dinner, Sam had promised to teach him some proper shooting techniques tomorrow. That night, as Sam sat on his porch swing with a cup of tea, he felt more at peace than he had in years. The worries and stresses of his sheriff days seemed far away. Here on Maple Street, with friendly neighbors, a nice house, and Rusty by his side, life was good. What Sam didn't notice was the car that drove slowly past his house, stopping briefly as someone inside took pictures of his new basketball hoop, colorful flowers, and freshly painted blue mailbox. He had no idea that his peaceful retirement was about to get very, very complicated. Sam woke up early the next morning, ready to enjoy another peaceful day in his new home. Rusty was already at the door, wagging his tail and ready for their morning walk. "Hold your horses, buddy," Sam laughed, pulling on his shoes. "Let me at least have a sip of coffee first." After their walk, Sam watered his newly planted flowers and swept the porch. He was just about to head inside when he noticed something stuck to his front door. A white envelope with the words "Official Notice" printed in bold black letters. "What's this about?" Sam muttered, pulling it off the door. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a fancy logo at the top. Sunny Pines Homeowners Association. The letter was typed in small print and filled with words that reminded Sam of the legal documents he used to deal with as sheriff. "Violation Notice, dear homeowner. Your property has been found in violation of the Sunny Pines HOA Code of Standards. The following violations must be corrected within 72 hours. Unauthorized recreational equipment, basketball hoop 2. Non-approved. Landscape modifications, miscellaneous flowers. Mailbox color deviation. Approved colors: white, black, beige. Failure to correct these violations will result in a fine of $100 per day per violation. Thank you for your cooperation. Sunny Pines HOA Compliance Committee. By order of Mr. Winters, President Sam read the notice twice, then burst out laughing. "You've got to be kidding me," he said to Rusty, who tilted his head in confusion. "They're mad about flowers and a basketball hoop? This has to be some kind of welcome prank." Sam crumpled up the paper and tossed it in the recycling bin. He had better things to do with his day, like teaching Tommy some basketball moves. Sure enough, Tommy showed up after lunch, basketball in hand and ready to play. They spent an hour shooting hoops until Betty came over with a pitcher of lemonade. "I see you're making friends already," she said, pouring them each a glass. "Tommy here is helping me test out my new hoop," Sam replied. "It passed with flying colors." Betty's smile faded a little as she looked at the basketball hoop. "Did you get permission to put that up?" "Permission?" Sam asked, confused. "It's my house." Betty looked uncomfortable. "Well, yes, but the HOA has rules about outdoor equipment. Did you get a notice yet?" Sam laughed. "Oh, you mean that silly piece of paper? I thought it was a joke." Betty's eyes widened. "Oh, dear." "Sam, it's not a joke. The Sunny Pines HOA is very serious about their rules." "Rules about flowers? Come on, Betty." "I know it seems silly," Betty said, lowering her voice even though no one else was around. "But trust me, you don't want to ignore those notices." "What can they do? Arrest me?" Sam joked, taking a sip of lemonade. Betty didn't laugh. "They can fine you, and if you don't pay the fines, they can put a lien on your house. I've seen it happen." Sam frowned. This wasn't the relaxing retirement he'd planned. "Who's this Mr. Winters anyway?" he asked. "I'd like to talk to him about these ridiculous rules." "Nobody really knows," Betty said, glancing around as if worried someone might overhear. "He never comes to meetings. Mrs. Parsons handles everything." As his secretary, Tommy, who had been quietly drinking his lemonade, piped up. "My dad says Mr. Winters isn't even real. He says it's just a name they made up to scare people." "Tommy!" Betty looked shocked. "Don't repeat gossip like that." After they left, Sam thought about what Betty had said. Could the HOA really cause so much trouble over a few flowers and a basketball hoop? It seemed ridiculous. He decided to ignore it. After all, what was the worst that could happen? The next few days were quiet. Sam met more neighbors, played more basketball with Tommy, and started a small vegetable garden in the backyard. He almost forgot about the HOA notice until Friday morning. Sam opened his front door to find another envelope taped to it. This one was bigger and had "Final Warning" stamped across it in bright red letters. He opened it and found not only another notice listing the same violations, but also photos of his basketball hoop, flowers, and blue mailbox. At the bottom was a new line: "Failure to comply will result in enforcement action." Sam stared at the words "enforcement action" and felt a chill run down his spine. What exactly did that mean? He was about to find out. That evening, Sam found a flyer in his mailbox announcing an HOA meeting at the Sunny Pines Community Center. The timing seemed perfect. He could go to the meeting, talk to this mysterious Mr. Winters face to face, and clear up this nonsense about his flowers and basketball hoop. "I'll be back in a bit, Rusty," Sam said, giving his dog a pat on the head. "You hold down the fort." The community center was a small building next to the neighborhood park. When Sam arrived, about 20 people were already seated in folding chairs. He recognized a few faces, including Betty, who waved him over. "I'm glad you came," she whispered as he sat down. "Now you can see how things work around here." At the front of the room was a long table with 4 empty chairs and name plates. One by one, 3 people walked in and took their seats. An older woman with her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun sat in the middle. On her right was a balding man with thick glasses, and on her left was a nervous-looking woman who kept checking her watch. The middle chair, with a nameplate reading, "Mr. Winters, President," remained empty. The woman in the middle tapped a small gavel on the table. The monthly meeting of the Sunny Pines Homeowners Association will now come to order. I am Mrs. Parsons, HOA Secretary. With me are Mr. Johnson, our Treasurer, and Mrs. Miller, our Activities Coordinator. Mrs. Parsons adjusted her glasses and looked at the empty chair. Mr. Winters sends his regrets. He is unable to attend tonight due to other commitments. Someone behind Sam muttered, "Just like every month." Mrs. Parsons shot a sharp look in that direction before continuing. First item of business, last month's financial report. Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson stood up and talked about numbers for what felt like hours, but was probably only 10 minutes. Sam struggled to follow all the talk about reserve funds and maintenance, allocations. What he did understand was that everyone in Sunny Pines paid $200 a month to the HOA, which added up to a lot of money. Next, Mrs. Miller gave a quick report about an upcoming community picnic. She seemed to check with Mrs. Parsons after every sentence, as if afraid to say the wrong thing. Finally, Mrs. Parsons cleared her throat. Now, we move to compliance issues. We have several ongoing violations to discuss. To Sam's surprise, Mrs. Parsons pulled out a folder with his name on it. Our newest resident, Mr. Cooper, at 427 Maple Street, has installed unauthorized recreational equipment, planted non-approved vegetation, and painted his mailbox an unapproved color. Sam raised his hand. Mrs. Parsons ignored him. The committee recommends immediate enforcement action if violations are not corrected by Monday morning. Sam stood up. Excuse me, Mrs. Parsons. I'd like to understand these rules better. Mrs. Parsons looked at him as if he had interrupted a presidential speech. Questions are taken at the end of the meeting, Mr. Cooper. I just want to know what's wrong with having flowers and a basketball hoop, Sam said, remaining standing. He'd faced down angry criminals as sheriff. He wasn't about to be intimidated by a woman with a tiny gavel. If you had read your HOA covenant when purchasing your home, you would know that all external modifications require pre-approval, Mrs. Parsons said, her voice icy. The rules are very clear. I didn't get any covenant, Sam replied. Mr. Johnson adjusted his glasses. It's included in the closing paperwork. Page 347, paragraph 6, subsection C. Sam tried again. Look, I'm happy to be a good neighbor, but these rules seem a bit much. Can we discuss what's really important here? The flowers make the neighborhood look nicer, and the basketball hoop gives kids like Tommy a place to play. Several people nodded in agreement. Mrs. Miller leaned over to Mrs. Parsons and whispered something. Mrs. Parsons frowned. The rules exist for a reason, Mr. Cooper, she said firmly. Property values depend on uniformity and compliance. If you wish to appeal these violations, you may submit Form 27B to the Appeals Committee, which meets quarterly. When's the next meeting? Sam asked. December, Mr. Johnson replied. It was May. Sam sat back down, frustrated. The meeting continued with more talks about rules, violations, and procedures. When it finally ended, Sam tried to approach the committee members, but Mrs. Parsons quickly packed up her files and left, with Mrs. Miller hurrying after her. Only Mr. Johnson stayed behind. I'm sorry about your troubles, he said, not meeting Sam's eyes. But I recommend complying with the notices. The enforcement team doesn't mess around. Enforcement team? Sam asked. "What does that mean exactly?" Mr. Johnson looked nervous. "You'll find out if you don't fix those violations." "Good evening, Mr. Cooper." As Sam walked home in the dark, he noticed a car parked across from his house. The driver was watching his property. When Sam got closer, the car started its engine and drove away. Something strange was happening in Sunny Pines, and Sam's sheriff instincts were starting to tingle. Sam woke up early Saturday morning, still thinking about the strange HOA meeting. As he sipped his coffee on the porch, he watched Rusty chase squirrels in the yard. "What do you think, boy? Should we take down the basketball hoop and dig up the flowers?" he asked. Rusty barked, which Sam took as a definite no. "That's what I thought too," Sam said with a smile. "This is our home, and there's nothing wrong with making it look nice." After breakfast, Sam decided to mow his lawn. He figured he could at least keep the grass neat, even if he wasn't going to follow the other silly rules. He was almost finished when Tommy rode up on his bike. "Hi, Sam," the boy called, dropping his bike on the sidewalk. "Can we play basketball?" "Sure thing," Sam said, turning off the mower. "Let me put this away first." They were in the middle of a game when a shiny black SUV with tinted windows pulled up in front of Sam's house. Two people stepped out, a man and a woman, both wearing dark blue uniforms that looked almost like police uniforms. They had patches on their shoulders that said HOA enforcement and wore badges on their chests. "Tommy, why don't you head home for now?" Sam said quietly, handing the boy his basketball. "I need to talk to these people." Tommy looked at the uniformed people with wide eyes. "Are you in trouble?" "No, just a misunderstanding." "Go on now." As Tommy rode away on his bike, the two uniformed people walked up Sam's driveway. "Mr. Samuel Cooper?" the woman asked. She was tall with short blonde hair and a serious expression. "That's me," Sam replied, crossing his arms. "I'm Officer Davis, and this is Officer Martinez from Sunny Pines HOA Enforcement," she said officially. "We're here about multiple violations on your property." Officer Martinez, a shorter man with a thick mustache, pulled out what looked like a ticket book. "According to our records, you've ignored two official notices regarding these violations." He gestured to the basketball hoop and the colorful flowers. Sam studied their uniforms more carefully. They certainly looked official at first glance, with their patches, badges, and even utility belts with what appeared to be handcuffs and flashlights. But something wasn't right. Real police badges had numbers and specific designs. These badges were just shiny metal with HOA enforcement stamped on them. "Can I see some identification?" Sam asked calmly. The two exchanged quick glances. "Sir, we are the official enforcement arm of the Sunny Pines Homeowners Association," Officer Davis said, avoiding his question. "We have the authority to issue fines for covenant violations." "Uh-huh," Sam said, not convinced. "And what department are you with exactly? County? City?" "HOA enforcement," Martinez repeated, looking slightly uncomfortable. "Now, about these violations. You have 3 current violations at $100 each, plus late fees of $50 per day for 2 days, coming to a total of $500. He tore a ticket from his book and held it out. "You can pay by check or credit card." Sam didn't take the ticket. "I wasn't aware that homeowners associations had their own police force." "We're not police, sir," Davis clarified. "We're enforcement officers. It's a different designation." "With handcuffs?" Sam pointed to the items on their belts. Davis straightened her posture. For our protection when dealing with uncooperative homeowners, Sam had to hold back a laugh. In his 30 years as sheriff, he'd never heard of HOA enforcement officers with handcuffs. "Look," Sam said, I understand there are rules, but some flowers and a basketball hoop for neighborhood kids hardly seem like crimes." "Rules are rules, Mr. Cooper," Martinez said firmly. "If you refuse to pay the fines or correct the violations immediately, we can place a lien on your property." Sam was about to argue further when he noticed something else. Odd. Their SUV had what looked like emergency lights on top, but they weren't the right kind. They were the type you could buy at any auto parts store. "What happens if I don't pay?" Sam asked, curious to see how far they would take this charade. Officer Davis's face hardened. "Continued non-compliance could result in your arrest and removal from the property." That did it. Sam knew for certain they were fakes. No HOA had the legal authority to arrest anyone, and certainly not for planting flowers. "Is that so?" Sam said, letting a small smile cross his face. "And what charges would I be arrested on?" The fake officers looked at each other again, clearly, not expecting this question. "Violation of HOA covenants," Martinez finally said, though he sounded less confident. "That's not a criminal offense," Sam pointed out. "It's a civil matter. Our authority comes directly from Mr. Winters and the HOA board," Davis insisted, her voice rising slightly. "Well, that's interesting," Sam said, "because I'd like to see the document that gives HOA enforcement officers the power to arrest homeowners. Could you show me that?" Martinez shifted uncomfortably. "That's confidential information." "Of course it is," Sam said. He stepped closer to them, using the calm but firm voice he'd perfected over decades of law enforcement. "Let me be clear about something. I was the sheriff of Riverdale County for 30 years. I know exactly what real law enforcement looks like, and this isn't it." The blood drained from both their faces. "You're impersonating law enforcement officers, which is a felony," Sam continued. "Now, I suggest you take your fake badges and toy handcuffs and leave my property before I call the real police." Davis recovered first. "You're making a big mistake, Mr. Cooper. The HOA has ways of dealing with troublemakers." "Is that a threat?" Sam asked. "It's a fact," she replied coldly. "Come on, Martinez." They turned and walked back to their SUV. Before getting in, Davis looked back at Sam. "You'll regret this, Mr. Cooper. Nobody stands up to the Sunny Pines HOA." As they drove away, Sam noticed Betty watching from her front yard. She hurried over. As soon as the SUV was out of sight, "Oh my goodness, Sam, were those the enforcement officers? What happened?" "Those weren't real officers," Sam said. "They were fakes with store-bought badges and toy handcuffs, trying to scare people into paying fines." Betty looked shocked. "But they've come to several houses on the street. Mrs. Jenkins paid them $700 last month for having wind chimes." Sam frowned. If these fake officers were going around collecting money from everyone in the neighborhood, that added up to a lot of cash. This wasn't just about petty rules, it was fraud. "Betty, I think something very wrong is happening in Sunny Pines." Betty looked worried. "What do you mean, Sam?" "Those weren't real enforcement officers," Sam explained. "They were pretending to have legal authority they don't have. That's against the law." Betty's eyes widened. "But everyone listens to them. Last year, they made the Johnsons tear down their children's treehouse. And poor Mrs. Delgado, she's 85 years old. They threatened to take her house because she had garden gnomes." Sam felt his old sheriff instincts kick into high gear. "How long has this been going on?" "About 2 years, I think. That's when Mr. Winters became president, and the rules got much stricter." Sam thought for a moment. "Betty, would you mind watching Rusty for a few hours? I need to do some investigating." "Of course," Betty said. Be careful, though. The HOA doesn't like people asking questions. After dropping Rusty off at Betty's house, Sam drove to the county courthouse. He still had friends there who could help. Him. His first stop was the property records office. "Sam Cooper," exclaimed Grace Williams, the county clerk. "Retirement suits you. What brings you back to the courthouse?" "Research project," Sam said with a smile. "I need to look up some information about Sunny Pines Homeowners Association." Grace helped him find the records. Sam discovered that the HOA was registered as a non-profit organization, with Mr. Edward Winters listed as the president for the past 2 years. The address for Mr. Winters was the community center, not a home in the neighborhood. Next, Sam visited his old friend, Detective Mike Rodriguez, at the police department. "Sam, good to see you," Mike said, giving him a firm handshake. "Missing the job already?" "Not exactly," Sam replied. "I need to ask you something. Has there been any reports about fake enforcement officers in Sunny Pines?" Mike's expression turned serious. "Nothing official. But there have been rumors. Why? What's going on?" Sam told him about the fake officers who had come to his house. "That sounds like impersonating law enforcement," Mike said, frowning. "But without an official complaint, we can't do much." "What if I file one?" Sam asked. "Then we'd have to investigate," Mike said. "But Sam, be careful. HOAs can be powerful. They might not be breaking the law with their strict rules, even if they're annoying. Trust me, Mike. These people are doing more than enforcing silly rules." On his way home, Sam drove slowly through the neighborhood, looking at houses with a detective's eye. He noticed that some homes had basketball hoops, colorful flowers, or other items that supposedly violated HOA rules. But these houses also had fancy Sunny Pines HOA board member signs in their yards. One rule for them, another for everyone else. When Sam got home, he sat in his car and waited. Sure enough, within an hour, the black SUV drove by his house again, moving slowly. Sam quickly snapped photos with his phone, capturing the vehicle, its fake emergency lights, and even the license plate. The next day was Sunday, and Sam decided to talk to more neighbors. He started with the Jenkins family, since Betty had mentioned. They paid a large fine. "Oh yes," Mrs. Jenkins said when Sam asked about the HOA enforcement. "They made us pay $700 for our wind chimes. Said they violated the noise ordinance." "Did they show you where that rule was written?" Sam asked. Mrs. Jenkins looked confused. "Well, no, but they had badges and uniforms. We thought they were real officers." Sam heard similar stories all over the neighborhood. The Patels had paid $900 for painting their door red. The Garcias were fined $100 for having too many potted plants. And Mrs. Delgado, the elderly woman Betty mentioned, had paid over $2,000 in fines for her garden gnomes. No one had ever seen these rules in writing. No one had ever met Mr. Winters. And everyone was too afraid of losing their homes to question the enforcement officers. That evening, Sam called Mike at the police department. "I need a favor," Sam said. "Can you run a plate number for me? I think these fake officers might have criminal records." Mike hesitated. "You know I can't officially do that without an investigation, Sam." "I understand," Sam said. "But people are being scammed out of thousands of dollars. And tomorrow, I'm going to file a formal complaint." Mike sighed. "Give me the number." Next morning, Mike called Sam back. "The SUV is registered to a private security company called Elite Community Patrol. They're not licensed for law enforcement, just basic security. And get this, the company was formed just 2 years ago." "Right. When Mr. Winters became HOA president," Sam said. "Any connection between them?" Not that I could find, but Sam, the two people you described, Davis and Martinez, they both worked as security guards at the mall until they were fired for intimidating shoppers. They have no law enforcement training. This confirmed what Sam already suspected. The whole operation was a scam. Sam spent the rest of the day gathering evidence. He collected statements from neighbors, took photos of houses with similar violations that weren't being fined, and made copies of all the fake tickets and notices he'd received. That night, as Sam reviewed everything he'd learned, he heard a car pull up outside. He peeked through the curtains and saw the black SUV. This time, 4 people in HOA enforcement uniforms got out. They stood in the street, staring at his house. Sam picked up his phone and called Mike. "I think it's time for that official complaint," he said. "And you might want to send a patrol car to my house. The fake officers are back, and they don't look happy." Sam knew things were about to get serious, but after 30 years as sheriff, he wasn't afraid of bullies, especially ones with fake badges. The fake officers didn't approach Sam's house that night. They just watched for about 20 minutes, then drove away. It was clearly meant to intimidate him. But Sam Cooper had faced down actual criminals with real guns during his time as sheriff. A few security guards in fake uniforms didn't scare him. The next morning, Sam called Betty. "I need your help," he said. "Could you spread the word that I'm having a neighborhood meeting at my house tonight at 7? Everyone's invited, especially anyone who's had trouble with the HOA enforcement officers." "Oh my," Betty said. "That's brave of you, Sam. I'll tell everyone I can trust." Sam spent the day preparing. He set up chairs in his living room, made coffee and lemonade, and organized all the evidence he'd collected. He also called Mike to update him on the plan. "Just be careful," Mike warned. "If these people are running a scam, they won't be happy about you exposing them." By 7 o'clock, Sam's house was packed. Betty came, along with the Jenkinses, the Patels, the Garcias, Mrs. Delgado, and about 15 other neighbors. Tommy's parents were there too. Sam was pleased to see so many people had the courage to show up. "Thank you all for coming," Sam began once everyone was settled. "I called this meeting because I believe something very wrong is happening in our neighborhood." Sam explained what he'd discovered: the fake badges, the unlicensed security company, the missing HOA president, and the selective enforcement of rules. "But they have uniforms and everything," Mr. Garcia said. "They look official." "That's part of the scam," Sam explained. "They're counting on intimidating people who don't know their rights. But here's the truth. No HOA has the power to arrest anyone. They can't put you in handcuffs. They can't take your house over garden gnomes." Mrs. Delgado gasped. "But they told me they could. I paid them my entire Social Security check last month." Other neighbors shared similar stories. The Patels had been saving for their daughter's college, but used that money to pay HOA fines instead. Mrs. Jenkins had sold her late mother's jewelry to pay for the wind chime violation. "This isn't just unfair," Sam said. "It's illegal. They're committing fraud and impersonating law enforcement. But to stop them, we need to work together." "What can we do?" Tommy's dad asked. "They're powerful." "They want you to think they're powerful," Sam corrected. "But their power comes from fear. If we stand together, they can't bully all of us." Sam laid out a plan. First, everyone would document their experiences with the fake officers: dates, amounts paid, threats made. Second, they would file a group complaint with the real police. And third, they would call for an emergency HOA meeting to demand answers from the mysterious Mr. Winters. "But what about their threats?" Mrs. Patel asked worriedly. "What if they come after us?" "That's where I come in," Sam said. "I have friends in law enforcement who are taking this very seriously. And from now on, we use the buddy system. No one deals with these fake officers alone. Sam handed out his phone number to everyone. Day or night, if they show up at your house, call me immediately. I'll be there, and I'll bring backup. The mood in the room began to shift from fear to determination. People who had been afraid to speak up were now comparing notes and sharing stories. A sense of community, real community, not the fake version imposed by the HOA, filled Sam's living room. One more thing, Sam added. I want to teach you about your actual rights as homeowners. He explained that while HOAs could create rules, those rules had to be clearly documented, consistently enforced, and within legal boundaries. They couldn't make up new rules on the spot or enforce them selectively. Always ask to see the specific rule in writing, Sam advised. And remember, paying a fine is admitting you violated a rule. You have the right to appeal before paying anything. As the meeting continued, Sam noticed Betty talking quietly with Mrs. Delgado by the window. Suddenly, Betty signaled to him with a worried look. Sam, she whispered when he came over. The black SUV is outside again. They're watching the house. Sam peeked through the curtains. Sure enough, the HOA enforcement SUV was parked across the street. 2 officers sat inside, staring directly at Sam's house. Perfect timing, Sam said. He turned back to the group. It seems we have some uninvited guests monitoring our meeting. A ripple of fear went through the room. This is exactly what we talked about, Sam reassured everyone. They want us to be afraid, but we're not doing anything wrong by meeting as neighbors. Sam took out his phone and openly took pictures of the SUV. He even waved at them. After a few minutes, the SUV drove away. They know we're organizing, Sam explained, and that scares them more than anything. By the end of the meeting, they had formed the Sunny Pines Neighborhood Alliance. Every person had a specific role. Some would gather evidence, others would talk to more neighbors, and a few volunteered to help Mrs. Delgado and other elderly residents who had been targeted. Remember, Sam said as everyone prepared to leave, there's strength in numbers. They've gotten away with this because they've kept us isolated and afraid. That ends tonight. As the last neighbors left, Mr. Jenkins stopped to shake Sam's hand. We're lucky you moved here, he said. No one else had the courage to stand up to them. That's not true, Sam replied. You all had the courage. You just needed someone to remind you of it. After everyone had gone, Sam sat on his porch with Rusty, thinking about the evening. It felt good to be helping people again. He missed that part of being sheriff, but Sam knew the fake officers wouldn't give up easily. They were making too much money from their scam. The confrontation was just beginning. As if to confirm his thoughts, Sam spotted the black SUV driving slowly past his house again. This time, though, Sam smiled and waved. The game had changed, and the fake officers didn't even know it yet. Over the next few days, Sam and the Neighborhood Alliance put their plan into motion. They worked together to document every interaction with the fake HOA enforcement team. Sam taught them how to safely record conversations on their phones and take photos without being noticed. But after a week, something strange happened. The black SUV stopped appearing in the neighborhood. No one received any violation notices or visits from the fake officers. Maybe they gave up, Betty suggested when she stopped by Sam's house for coffee. I doubt it, Sam replied, pouring her a cup. They're making too much money to just walk away. I think they're planning something. What should we do? Sam thought for a moment. Spring a trap. A trap? Betty looked alarmed. That sounds dangerous. Not that kind of trap, Sam chuckled. We need to catch them in the act with witnesses and evidence. Right now, it's just our word against theirs. Sam's plan was simple, but clever. First, he He would create some obvious violations in his yard, the kind the fake officers couldn't resist ticketing. Then, neighbors would be stationed in nearby houses with cameras ready. When the fake officers showed up to confront Sam, they would document everything. "And I'll call Mike at the police department to have real officers nearby," Sam added. That weekend, Sam put his plan into action. He set up a second basketball hoop, painted his mailbox bright purple, and added a row of garden gnomes along his front walkway, a nod to Mrs. Delgado, who was thrilled to contribute her collection to the cause. Betty, the Jenkinses, and the Patels positioned themselves in windows with clear views of Sam's yard, phones and cameras ready. 2 more neighbors parked down the street, pretending to wash their cars while actually keeping watch. "Now we wait," Sam told Rusty, who seemed to understand something exciting was happening. The fake officers took the bait sooner than expected. That very afternoon, the black SUV pulled up in front of Sam's house. This time, 4 people in HOA enforcement uniforms got out: Officers Davis and Martinez, plus 2 larger men who looked like bodyguards. "Here we go, Rusty," Sam whispered. He gave a subtle nod toward Betty's window, their signal to start recording. Sam stepped onto his porch as the 4 approached. He noticed that today they were all wearing what looked like real holstered guns. Sam knew immediately they were trying to escalate the intimidation. "Mr. Cooper," Officer Davis called out, "we've observed multiple serious violations on your property." "Good afternoon to you too," Sam replied pleasantly. "Nice day, isn't it?" Davis wasn't amused. "This is your final opportunity to comply with HOA regulations before we take action." "What kind of action?" Sam asked, leaning casually against his porch railing. "Your continued defiance has resulted in fines totaling $2,500, Martinez said, pulling out his familiar ticket book. "Plus, the HOA board has authorized your removal from the property if you refuse to comply." "Removal?" Sam raised his eyebrows. "That sounds serious. And who exactly would be removing me?" Davis gestured to the 2 large men behind her. "Our enforcement team is authorized to take whatever steps necessary." "I see," Sam said, noticing how all the neighbors were carefully documenting this conversation. "And where exactly does an HOA get the legal authority to forcibly remove someone from their own property?" "From the HOA covenant that you agreed to when purchasing this house," Davis snapped, clearly annoyed by Sam's calm questions. "Interesting," Sam said. "Could you show me that specific section of the covenant?" The fake officers exchanged glances. They clearly weren't used to being questioned. "Sir, we don't need to explain ourselves," one of the large men said, stepping forward. "Either pay the fines and fix these violations, or we'll have to take enforcement action." Sam noticed the man's hand resting on his holster, a clear attempt to frighten him. But Sam had faced down armed suspects before. He knew these were just bullies with fake badges. "Before we continue," Sam said, "I'd like to know exactly who I'm dealing with. May I see your credentials? Your full names, badge numbers, and the specific law enforcement agency you represent." "We've told you already," Davis said angrily. "We're HOA enforcement officers." "Yes, but HOA enforcement officer isn't a recognized law enforcement position," Sam explained patiently. "And those badges you're wearing look remarkably similar to ones you can buy online for $20. Martinez stepped forward. "Listen, old man, this isn't a negotiation. Pay up or get out." Sam smiled. "I think there's something you should know about me." "We know who you are, Cooper," Davis interrupted. "A retired sheriff who thinks the rules don't apply to him." "That's partly right," Sam agreed. "But what you might not know is that impersonating a law enforcement officer is a felony. So is making threats while displaying a weapon, even if it's fake." At the mention of felonies, the fake officers became visibly uncomfortable. "And one more thing you should know," Sam continued. "This entire conversation is being recorded by about a dozen neighbors right now." All 4 officers quickly looked around, finally noticing the faces in windows and the neighbors on the street with phones pointed in their direction. "This is harassment," Davis sputtered. "No," Sam said firmly. "Harassment is threatening elderly people over garden gnomes. Harassment is scaring families into paying money they don't owe. What you've been doing isn't just harassment, it's fraud." The larger men started backing toward their SUV. "You're making a big mistake," Davis warned, but her voice had lost its authority. "I don't think so," Sam replied. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his old sheriff's badge, which he had kept as a memento. "I think you should meet the real sheriff." As if on cue, 2 police cars with flashing lights turned onto Maple Street. The fake officers panicked. At the sight of real police cars, they turned and rushed toward their SUV, pushing past each other in their hurry to escape. "Stop them!" Sam called to his neighbors. Without hesitation, Mr. Jenkins and Mr. Patel moved their cars to block the street. The Garcias stood in their driveway, phones recording everything. Other neighbors emerged from their houses, forming a human barrier. The fake officers found themselves trapped. "Going somewhere?" Mike Rodriguez asked as he stepped out of the first police car. 2 more officers emerged from the second car. "These people are blocking our vehicle," Officer Davis complained, trying to sound official. "We're HOA enforcement. Officers conducting lawful business." Mike looked at Sam, who shook his head slightly. "I'm Detective Rodriguez," Mike said, showing his badge, a real one. "We've received multiple complaints about individuals impersonating law enforcement officers in this neighborhood." "There's been a misunderstanding," Martinez said quickly. "We're private security for the Homeowners Association, not police officers." "Then, why are you wearing badges that look like police badges?" Mike asked. "And why do your uniforms closely resemble police uniforms? And most importantly, why are you carrying what appear to be firearms while threatening to remove people from their homes?" The 2 larger men immediately raised their hands. "The guns are fake," one of them admitted. "Just props to look official." "Shut up, Jackson," Davis hissed. Mike signaled to his officers. "I'm going to need all of you to put your hands on the vehicle while we sort this out." As the real police officers patted down the fake ones, Sam gathered his neighbors. "You all did great," he said. "The recordings you made will be important evidence." Betty looked worried. "But what about the HOA committee? They're the ones who sent these fake officers." "You're right," Sam agreed. "The committee has some explaining to do." Mike approached after securing the fake officers. "We've got them on multiple counts: impersonating law enforcement, fraud, extortion, and carrying replica firearms while committing crimes. They're talking already, trying to blame each other." "What did they say about the HOA committee?" Sam asked. "They claimed they were hired by Mr. Winters through Mrs. Parsons. They never met Winters directly. Everything came through her." Sam and Mike exchanged knowing looks. They both had enough experience with criminals to recognize when something didn't add up. "I think it's time we paid a visit to the community center," Sam suggested. "The HOA keeps all its records there." Mike nodded. "I'll bring a warrant." While Mike arranged for the fake officers to be taken to the station, Sam organized a group of neighbors to go to the community center. The Sunny Pines Neighborhood Alliance was ready for action. An hour later, they all met at the small building by the park. Mrs. Miller, the nervous committee member, was there alone, organizing papers for what looked like an upcoming meeting. Her eyes widened when she saw the group of neighbors accompanied by police officers with a search warrant. "What's happening?" she asked, her voice shaking. We need to see all HOA records, Mike explained, showing her the warrant. Financial records, meeting minutes, and any communications regarding enforcement actions. I can't, Mrs. Miller stammered. Only Mrs. Parsons has access to those files. Then call her, Sam suggested. Mrs. Miller made the call. 20 minutes later, Mrs. Parsons arrived, looking furious. Mr. Johnson, the treasurer, was right behind her. "This is outrageous," Mrs. Parsons declared. "You have no right to barge in here and demand private documents." Mike calmly showed her the warrant. "Actually, we do. Your enforcement officers have been arrested for impersonating police and fraud. We need to see who authorized their actions." "That would be Mr. Winters," Mrs. Parsons said stiffly. "All enforcement decisions come from him." "Then we'll need to speak with Mr. Winters immediately," Mike replied. "He's unavailable," Mrs. Parsons said quickly. "He's always unavailable," Sam pointed out. "No one in this neighborhood has ever met him. Isn't that strange?" the neighbors murmured in agreement. "Mr. Winters values his privacy," Mrs. Parsons insisted. Mike had heard enough. "Show us the files, please." Under the watchful eyes of police officers, Mrs. Parsons unlocked a filing cabinet and reluctantly handed over folders. Mike and Sam began reviewing them while neighbors watched. "That's odd," Sam said after a few minutes. "There's no record of any Edward Winters owning property in Sunny Pines." Mr. Johnson cleared his throat. "Well, you see, Mr. Winters doesn't actually live in the neighborhood. He's an outside investor." "An outside investor can't be HOA president," Sam said. "The bylaws require the president to be a homeowner in the community." As they dug deeper into the files, more irregularities emerged. The financial records showed over $200,000 collected in fines over the past 2 years, but that money wasn't in the HOA accounts. "Where did all this money go?" Mike asked, looking directly at Mrs. Parsons. Her face had gone pale. She glanced at the door, as if considering making a run for it, but the officers stood in her way. "It went to community improvements," she said weakly. "What improvements?" Betty challenged. "Our park equipment is 10 years old. The community center roof leaks. Where exactly did our money go?" Mrs. Parsons didn't answer. Instead, she suddenly rushed to a computer on the desk and started frantically pressing keys. "She's deleting files!" Sam shouted. An officer quickly pulled her away from the computer. Mike checked the screen. "Trying to erase financial transfers," he confirmed, "but not fast enough." With Mrs. Parsons restrained, Sam continued searching through paper files. In the back of the cabinet, he found a folder labeled W Correspondence, with a stack of letters, all allegedly from Mr. Winters. Sam examined the signatures carefully. Then he picked up a memo on Mrs. Parsons' desk and compared the handwriting. "I think I know who Mr. Winters is," Sam said, holding up the papers. "He's been right in front of us the whole time." Everyone turned to look at Mrs. Parsons. "Edward Winters doesn't exist," Sam declared. "He's a fiction created by Mrs. Parsons to control the HOA and steal money from all of us." Mrs. Parsons's face turned a deep shade of red. "That's ridiculous. Mr. Winters is a very private person who somehow never attends meetings," Sam interrupted. "Who has no address in the neighborhood. Whose signature looks exactly like yours with your left hand?" The neighbors gasped. Mrs. Miller put her hands over her mouth in shock. Mr. Johnson looked down at his shoes, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. "The handwriting matches," Mike confirmed, comparing the documents. "And I'm guessing if we check the bank records, we'll find transfers to accounts controlled by Mrs. Parsons." Mrs. Parsons's expression changed from indignation to calculation. She straightened her jacket and tried to regain her composure. "This is all a misunderstanding," she said coolly. "As HOA secretary, I often sign documents on Mr. Winters's behalf. He authorized me to do so." "Then let's call him right now," Sam suggested. "I'm sure he'll clear this up." Mrs. Parsons glared at Sam. I don't have to prove anything to you, Mr. Cooper. You're just a troublemaker who refuses to follow simple rules." Mike had been examining the financial records more closely. According to these documents, over $200,000 in fines has been collected in the past 2 years, but only about $30,000 appears in the HOA accounts. "Where's the rest of the money, Mrs. Parsons?" "Community improvements take many forms," she said vaguely. "There are expenses you wouldn't understand." "Like your new car?" Mr. Jenkins suddenly spoke up. "Or that fancy vacation you took to Hawaii last winter?" Mrs. Parsons shot him a venomous look. Sam continued searching through files and found something interesting. "Here's a bank statement for an account I've never seen mentioned in the official HOA documents. SP Management LLC with Mrs. Parsons. As the sole signatory." Mike looked over his shoulder. "And deposits that match the missing fine amounts almost exactly." "That's my private business account," Mrs. Parsons snapped. "It has nothing to do with the HOA." "Then why are homeowners' fines being deposited into it?" Mike asked. Mrs. Parsons fell silent, knowing she was caught. One of the police officers approached Mike. "Detective, we found something on the computer. There are emails between Mrs. Parsons and the security company, arranging for them to pose as enforcement officers. She specifically instructed them to intimidate residents and collect cash whenever possible." "I was just doing what was best for the neighborhood," Mrs. Parsons suddenly burst out. "These people need structure and rules. Without me, this place would fall apart into chaos." "By chaos, do you mean children playing basketball and old ladies having garden gnomes?" Sam asked. The neighbors were no longer afraid. They were angry. "You took my Social Security money," Mrs. Delgado said, her voice shaking. "You threatened to take my house because of wind chimes." Mrs. Jenkins added. More neighbors stepped forward, each with their own story of intimidation and fear. Mrs. Parsons looked around at the angry faces surrounding her. For the first time, she seemed to realize how serious her situation was. "It wasn't just me," she said desperately. "Mr. Johnson knew about everything. He helped set up the accounts." All eyes turned to Mr. Johnson, who had been trying to inch toward the door. "Is that true?" Mike asked him. I just did the paperwork," he stammered. "Mrs. Parsons said it was all approved by the board. I didn't know she was making up Mr. Winters." "But you knew about the fake officers?" Sam pressed. Mr. Johnson nodded miserably. "She called them enhanced enforcement. Said we needed to show strength to maintain property values." Mrs. Miller started crying. "I didn't know anything about this. I just went along with whatever Mrs. Parsons said." She always made the rules sound so official. Mike had heard enough. "Eleanor Parsons, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, and accessory to impersonating law enforcement officers." As Mike read Mrs. Parsons her rights, Sam noticed her glancing repeatedly at her purse on the desk. His instincts told him something important was inside. While the officers handcuffed Mrs. Parsons, Sam carefully checked her purse. Inside was a flash drive labeled HOA Backup. "Mike, you might want this for evidence," Sam said, holding up the drive. Mrs. Parsons lunged toward him, despite her handcuffs. "That's private property." Her reaction confirmed that the drive contained important evidence. As Mrs. Parsons was led away, Mr. Johnson agreed to cooperate fully in exchange for leniency. Mrs. Miller was released after it became clear she was just a pawn in Mrs. Parsons' scheme. The neighbors watched in stunned silence as police cars drove away with Mrs. Parsons and the evidence. "Is it really over?" Betty asked, still not quite believing what had happened. "The immediate danger is," Sam confirmed, "but we'll need to rebuild the HOA properly now." The neighbors gathered in the community center, trying to process everything they'd learned. "Who's in charge now?" Mrs. Delgado asked. "According to the bylaws, the homeowners need to elect a new board," Sam explained. "Until then, we can form a temporary committee to handle basic needs." People immediately volunteered. Sam was nominated to lead the temporary committee, and he reluctantly agreed. Later that evening, Sam returned to the community center alone to organize the remaining files. He wanted to make sure nothing else was hidden from the neighbors. As he sorted through papers, a folder labeled "Private Investments" caught his eye. Inside were notes about future plans for Sunny Pines, plans that included buying out homeowners at low prices to sell the land to a developer. Sam dug deeper and found more troubling documents. Mrs. Parsons had been working on something bigger than just collecting illegal fines. There were references to investors and partners whose names weren't mentioned, just initials. One note, written in Mrs. Parsons' handwriting, read, "JM confirms funding for Phase 2. Once we control enough properties, we can proceed with rezoning." Sam frowned. Mrs. Parsons wasn't working alone after all. Someone else was involved, someone who might still be in the neighborhood. As Sam gathered these new documents as evidence, he couldn't shake the feeling that they hadn't discovered the whole truth yet. 2 weeks after Mrs. Parsons' arrest, the Sunny Pines community gathered in the park for a special meeting. The weather was perfect, sunny with a light breeze rustling through the trees. Rusty lay at Sam's feet as neighbors set up folding chairs in a large circle. "This feels different already," Betty commented as she helped arrange refreshments on a table. "More like a community and less like a dictatorship," Sam smiled. The past 2 weeks had been busy but rewarding. After Mrs. Parsons and the fake officers were arrested, people started coming forward with more stories and evidence. The investigation revealed that Mrs. Parsons had stolen over $200,000 through fake fines and HOA fee skimming. "Everyone ready?" Sam asked as the neighbors settled into their seats. The meeting began with good news. The district attorney had charged Mrs. Parsons with multiple felonies, and she was facing serious prison time. The fake officers had made deals to testify against her in exchange for lighter sentences. "What about the money she stole?" Mrs. Delgado asked. "Will we get it back?" "The court has frozen her accounts," Sam explained. "They found most of the money, and the judge has ordered it returned to the HOA. That means everyone who paid unfair fines will be reimbursed." A cheer went up from the crowd. "Now we need to talk about the future of Sunny Pines," Sam continued. "We need a real HOA with fair rules and transparent operations." The neighbors had many ideas. Some wanted to eliminate the HOA completely, but Sam explained that they needed some basic rules to maintain the community areas, like the park and community center. "The key is keeping it simple and fair," Sam said. "No crazy rules about basketball hoops or garden gnomes." Together, they drafted a new HOA charter with clear, reasonable guidelines. Decisions would require community votes, not just commands from a board. Financial records would be open to all homeowners. Most importantly, they established term limits for board members to prevent another Mrs. Parsons situation. "We need to elect a new board today," Sam reminded everyone. "Who would like to nominate candidates?" To Sam's surprise, almost everyone pointed at him. "Sam for president," Tommy shouted, and the crowd laughed and applauded. "I appreciate the thought," Sam said, "but I'm retired. I didn't move here to take on another full-time job." "Just temporarily," Mr. Jenkins suggested. until we get things running smoothly. We need someone honest to start us off right. After much discussion, Sam agreed to serve as interim president for 6 months. Betty was elected secretary, Mr. Garcia became treasurer, and Mrs. Delgado and Tommy's father rounded out the board. "My first official act as president," Sam announced, "is to declare that basketball hoops, flowers of any color, and garden gnomes are all officially allowed in Sunny Pines." Everyone cheered, especially Tommy, who was already planning a basketball tournament for the neighborhood kids. After the meeting, neighbors lingered in the park, talking and laughing. The atmosphere in Sunny Pines had completely changed. People who had been living in fear were now building friendships. Children played freely without parents worrying about HOA violations. Sam watched it all with satisfaction. This was the community he had hoped to find when he retired. The next morning, Sam went to the community center to start organizing the HOA files properly. He wanted to make sure everything was in order before the new board's first official meeting. As he worked, he kept thinking about the strange notes he'd found mentioning JM and the plan to buy properties for redevelopment. He had given copies to Mike, who promised to investigate, but Sam couldn't stop wondering who else might have been involved with Mrs. Parsons. "Good morning, Mr. President," a friendly voice called. Sam looked up to see James Morrison, one of his neighbors from Oak Lane. James had been supportive during the whole HOA crisis and had volunteered to help reorganize the community center. "Just Sam is fine," Sam replied with a smile. "Presidential titles go to my head." "Finding everything you need?" James asked, looking at the files spread across the desk. "Mostly." Mrs. Parsons wasn't big on organization unless it involved collecting. "Money?" James laughed. "Well, I'm happy to help. I used to work in real estate development, so I know a thing or two about property management." "Real estate development?" Sam repeated, feeling a small alarm bell ring in his head. "Years ago," James said casually. "Now, I just do some consulting on the side. Nothing exciting." Sam nodded, but his sheriff instincts were on alert. Hadn't the HOA mysterious notes mentioned development plans? "Actually, there is something you might help me understand," Sam said, deciding to test his suspicions. "I found some notes about property acquisitions and rezoning. Did the old HOA have plans to redevelop parts of Sunny Pines?" James's smile flickered just for a second. "I wouldn't know anything about that. Sounds like more of Mrs. Parsons's schemes." Sam watched him carefully. "Probably. She mentioned working with investors, though." "Investors?" James sounded too interested. "Anyone specific?" "Just initials," Sam said vaguely. "Anyway, I should get back to organizing. The folders in that cabinet need to be alphabetized if you want to start there." As James turned to the filing cabinet, Sam quietly opened his desk drawer and took out the folder with the mysterious notes. He needed to look at those initials again. And there it was. JM confirms funding for Phase 2. JM James Morrison? Sam glanced up and froze. James was standing over him, his friendly smile gone. "Finding anything interesting, Sheriff?" James asked, slowly closing the door behind him. Sam noticed a folder in James's hand with the initials JM embossed on the corner. All the pieces suddenly came together in Sam's mind. James wasn't just helping Mrs. Parsons, he was the one pulling the strings all along. And now Sam was alone with him in the community center, miles away from help, with evidence that could destroy James's plans spread out on the desk between them. Where are you tuning in from today? Drop your location in the comments below. I love seeing how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed Fake HOA Police Came to Arrest Me, but I'm the Real Sheriff, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me create more of these interesting stories that we all enjoy. New videos every week with tales that will surprise, entertain, and maybe even inspire you. Don't miss out. Remember, a little kindness goes a long way. Share this video with someone who might need a good story today. Until next time, keep spreading kindness wherever you go.